Welcome in Dan Orlovsky and Mike Tannenbaum this hour to do it. D.O., I'm going to lead off with you. What is your bold prediction tonight?
The Cowboys are finally going to bring some flash receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb. Ted McMillan is the guy for me, the young player out of Arizona. The frame reminds me so much of Drake London from the Atlanta.
You're going to get it right. Interesting. Nick, give me your bold prediction.
Yeah, this is pretty bold. I think maybe the Bengals trade Trey Hendrickson. They are spending a lot of money on the quarterback and receiver. Whenever you start, or multiple receivers, whenever you start spending a lot of money on veteran players, you got to fill up your roster with young guys that pan out. And so maybe they decide to amass a bunch of picks over the next couple of days and use that to fill out the roster. And it might require moving on from their best defensive player in Trey Hendrickson.
And mind you, we haven't seen any trades yet, which could set up for a chaotic night. That is a bold prediction. Mike Tannenbaum, what is yours?
Ashton Jeanty, running back, Boise State goes to the top 5, and that folds into what you just said, Matt. I thought for a long time Jeanty to the Raiders at 6.
Running back deep drafts, as we know. Dan Graziano, your bold prediction?
Jackson Dart will be selected before Shedeur Sanders is my bold prediction. Do I know if it's going to happen? No, but I've heard a lot of positive buzz on Jackson Dart here in the last couple of weeks. Teams that have kind of zeroed in on him. The Pittsburgh Steelers do at 21. Whether Sanders is their guy, Shedeur Sanders, or whether Jackson Dart ends up being taken ahead of Sanders, and Sanders ends up having to possibly even wait till tomorrow night.
Slip to the second round.
Yeah.
That's going to be one to watch, Dan Orlovsky. The quarterback conversation, the quarterback market's been volatile since day one. So your reaction to the potential of Jackson Dart going ahead of Shedeur?
That's kind of where I've had Jackson Dart since the start of this process. I've had him at kind of QB2 for me since the beginning of this evaluation. I thought that when you looked at their tape, while Shedeur did good things, Jackson Dart did potentially great things. And maybe it's not as consistent as you would want for a guy that maybe would have gone in the top 5. But if you're asking me what quarterback has the most wow throws in this draft, it would be Jackson Dart. What quarterback had the most difficult throws that were constantly challenged down the field? It would be Jackson Dart. What quarterback was the strongest within the pocket? It would be Jackson Dart. What quarterback made some of the most athletic plays? It would be Jackson Dart. And so that's why I have been, from the very start of this process, so much higher on Jackson Dart than others. It was reminding me of Bo Nix last year. When you watched his tape, I was like, oh my gosh, I like this guy a lot more. So I wouldn't be surprised by it, just because you don't draft these players, specifically quarterbacks, for what they are right now. You draft them for what they're going to be in 2 years. And I think Jackson Dart, you know, if you treat him similar to Jordan Love or Drake May, he's got to fix his feet. Got a chance to be a big-time player in the NFL.
And that goes to the organization he goes to as well. If an organization is willing to be patient to watch him develop, then they will have a good quarterback on their hands. I want to get to some news that Adam Schefter just tweeted moments ago. Broncos have fielded calls in recent days from teams interested in potentially moving up to Denver's 20th selection, per sources. The Broncos currently hold the draft slot in front of Pittsburgh's number 21. So if I'm just reading that, that to me says there could be a team that wants to get up and maybe get a quarterback, Graziano.
Maybe. It could be any number of things, right? I've heard the Houston Texans want to trade up from 25 to get a receiver or an offensive lineman. So, but to your point, if you are the Giants and Jackson Dart is your guy, and you have concerns that he's also Cleveland's guy or New Orleans guy or even Pittsburgh's guy, then you're looking at that range. 18, Seattle's a team that loves to trade down. 20, if Denver's willing to do it. We keep hearing Denver's more interested in trading up than down, but you know, if they're not able to do that, then sure, you listen and you get extra picks. So yes, it's possible that a team that wants to go up for a quarterback feels they need to get ahead of Pittsburgh, which has an obvious need in picking 21. So that 20 spot makes a lot of sense.
Mike T, get in there.
Yeah, and here's something that's really important. You know, we say the draft starts tonight, but in some ways what's interesting is when you bootstrap tomorrow night and you look at 33 and 34 with Cleveland and the Giants, to build off of what Graz just said, the Steelers don't have a second-round pick, and they're desperate for a quarterback, Matt. And why that's consequential is if a team leapfrogs to 20, let's say, for Dart or Sanders, be it the Browns or the Giants, let's say, the Steelers could be stuck because they just don't have the same ammunition to go up to get whoever their quarterback is. So I think there's a massive amount of intrigue, not only at the top here, but sort of like the second bite of the apple between Dart and Sanders, with both the Browns, the Giants, and the Steelers all needing quarterbacks. To me, there's like 2 quarterbacks there for 3 teams.
And here's why that's notable. I think the fact that they want to move up to 20 in front of the Steelers is notable because overnight and late yesterday, the Steelers became the betting favorite to draft Shedeur Sanders. We've kind of pointed at that as the line of demarcation for Shedeur. So now, Neek, that's notable in the fact that the Steelers are the favorite. They picked 21. Broncos are now fielding calls, according to Adam Schefter, to move up to that 21 pick ahead of the team that's the favorite to land Shedeur.
Yeah, I think that we have to remember, I think when Mike T's bringing in the second round into this conversation, I think it's important to acknowledge that some teams might want to get their quarterback there, but it might be more valuable if your quarterback is good to get him in the first round because you have that fifth-year option. I think we undervalue how important it is to have that for such a high-value, expensive position. So while they are going to get pushed down because of their evaluation, they're going to get pushed up because of their ability and pushed up even more. You think back, Lamar Jackson's the ideal scenario where you get him at the very last pick in the first round, and the money is lower, but the expectation to retain him is a little bit higher.
And especially if it's quarterback that you think you might not play this year because now you get 5 years of control over him instead of 4, and obviously that becomes 4 instead of 3 if he doesn't play this year.
Orlovsky.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 reasons why the Steelers would not take a quarterback at number 21 tonight. And if they did, I would imagine it would be Shedeur, but the only 2 reasons would be, number one, that Rodgers or Kirk Cousins is going to be their quarterback next year. Yeah, and I have no idea if that's the case or not, and you would have hoped that that would have been resolved before tonight. Maybe there's a last-minute phone call get made that they either know that one of those guys is going to become a part of their football team or they're looking ahead to next year. And I know that might sound ridiculous to Steelers fans, and to me it does because Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick, but next year's quarterback class coming out of college football is going to be like last year's. You're going to talk about 6 guys that have the potential going to the first round. So if you're the Steelers, I think that they should take a quarterback, and I think that they have to plan for the future at some point because you don't know what the future is going to be. But if teams jump them, and it's for a Jackson Dart, and they don't love Shedeur, those would be one of the 2 reasons why they don't take Shedeur, that they know Rodgers or Cousins is coming, or they're saying, you know what, next year's class is just so much better.
I want to get Mike T in on this because you've been in the front office on draft nights and you've done this numerous times. As a front office, in a quarterback crop like we have tonight, and you know you need one, do you have to be in like or in love with one of these guys to make the pick when you know it's a hole on your roster at quarterback?
It's in like, Matt. I was there in 2009. Brett Favre graduated. He went up to the Vikings. We just hired Rex Ryan, and we knew that we had to get a quarterback. There was 3 in the first round: Matt Stafford, Mark Sanchez, and Josh Freeman. We were very fortunate to get Mark Sanchez. And where I see it a little bit differently than Dan is this. We heard Aaron Rodgers. If we were running the Steelers guys and we're in a win-now mode and our offseason already began, we can't count on Aaron Rodgers, and we may not be able to count on Kirk Cousins because of the complexities of the contract. We control getting a quarterback. So to me, when you go out and give $30 million a year for DK Metcalf and a second-round pick, you have to get a quarterback, and I would expect the Steelers to do that in a few hours.
But if the quarterback's not good, the quarterback's not good. And I think the Steelers are one of the unique organizations that are in a situation where they don't have to be pressured in that way. And so, like, I get the normal pressures that you might feel in this situation, particularly from the fans or even from the ownership. In most situations, you're like, hey, we don't have somebody. We got to get somebody. But if your evaluation is that this is not a great quarterback and we might have a chance at a great one next season, I'm not sure that it makes sense because drafting a quarterback, especially this early, means you're at least committing to him for a couple of seasons.
Orlovsky.
Yeah,